Okay, I will now call to order the THPRD Board of Directors meeting for December 9th, 2020. Jessica, can you please call roll?
Ashley Hartmeyer-Prigg, Tia Ping,
Here.
Heidi Edwards, Wendy Kroger.
Wendy, are you on mute?
Kroger.
I don't see her on the list. I don't see her.
I don't see her either.
Let's see.
Oops, what did I do?
I'll request her to join.
You can text her.
Yeah, I'll reach out to her here. As it were, this evening, we need the magic third.
Well, she was just here.
Looks like she should be on now. Wendy, are you here?
Yeah, sorry, I was having an engagement with a cat. Sorry. I'm back.
Those pesky cats.
Okay, and Felicita Monteblanco.
Here.
Okay, great. And then do we have any action items resulting from executive sessions?
Yes, Felicita here. I move that the Board of Directors authorize staff to grant a street lighting easement to the City of Beaverton in the Southeast Quadrant, subject to the appropriate due diligence review and approval by the General Manager.
And do we have a second?
This is Wendy. I second.
Can I second? Okay, Wendy, second.
Wendy Kroger,
Yes.
Felicita Monteblanco,
Yes.
Tia Ping.
Yes. And I believe we have a second motion.
We do. This is Wendy. I move that the Board of Directors authorizes staff to grant a permanent waterline easement and temporary construction easement for the price discussed in executive session to the Tualatin Valley Water District in the Southeast Quadrant, subject to the appropriate due diligence review and approval by the General Manager.
This is Felicita. I second.
Felicita Monteblanco,
Yes.
Wendy Kroger,
Yes.
Tia Ping.
Yes. Great, and I think that's the last of our motions. So we move on to presentations, the audit report. Doug?
Yes, Lori will provide the introductions.
Thank you. Good evening. Your packet includes a copy of the district's annual audit financial report. I would like to take a minute to thank our audit committee members for their support this year. Suzanne Lenine, Shannon Kennedy, and Ashley Hartmeyer-Prigg are all on the audit committee. Thank you. I'd also like to introduce our audit partner, Julie Fahey. Julie and her team worked timeless hours in evenings, on weekends, to make sure that we got this audit report completed and issued. So thank you very much, Julie. And with that, I'll hand this over to Julie.
All right, thank you, Lori. Well, thank you for letting me be here with you this evening. My name is Julie Fahey. I'm an audit partner with Talbot, Cavola & Warwick, as Lori said, and I'm here to present the audit results for the district for the year ended June 30, 2020. So as you might imagine, this has been a different year. Thank you for warning the slide. This has been a different year. It's been a different audit. While much of the audit is very much the same, we did conduct the audit just about 99% remotely. So using a secure, encrypted share file access, a portal with the district to be able to have a safe exchange of information that we used pre-pandemic, but continued forth with it. And then just with their support, energy, and diligence, being able to receive the audit evidence that we needed, to conduct our procedures remotely. So thank you to them for that. So as a result, I'm here to present the results and kind of just briefly go over a little bit of the comprehensive annual financial report, which is the financial statements for the district. While it is 97 pages, I will not go through every page. In the event that you're not interested in that, I'll just kind of highlight a few areas for you. The first one being is the independent auditor's report there that I have on the slide. So this is within the CAFR, and it is an unmodified opinion. It's a clean opinion. So when you're receiving an audit, it is what you are looking for. Essentially, it says based upon all the procedures that we did, and we did field work in May like we normally do, and then we did it again in October like we normally have scheduled as well. Based upon all the procedures that we did, the exchange of information, looking at source documents, confirmations, reperformance inspection, everything that we did, we feel that the financial statements are fairly presented. So it's a good thing. Following the audit report within the CAFR, just kind of giving you a little overview, you have access to it. I'm sure it's been submitted to you or it's available online as well. There's an MD&A, so that's Management's Discussion Analysis. It's a portion of the CAFR that provides like a good overview and synopsis for the activities of the district for the year. I always recommend someone who's not interested in going through all 97 pages to start with the MD&A, and it provides a nice comparative format as well. So it has information on 2019 as well as 2020. And then just letting you know, following the MD&A is your basic financial statements. Not going to go into too much detail, just letting you know that the presentation is the same as what you've seen in years past. Luckily, GASB, so the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, was kind enough to grant us a pass this year and not having to implement any new standards. So that was nice. So no changes to what you've seen in the basic financial statements or the note disclosures. Very similar to what you've seen in last year, but obviously updated for the current year activity. Following the note disclosures within your financial statements, you have different schedules that are required, such as OPEB and pension, as well as some budget to actual schedules. And then at the back, there's a statistical section where sometimes I find I direct readers to. I think they have interest in that. If they're not so much interested in the financial statements themselves, there is some good information and metrics that is disclosed in the stats section. And then the second report that I have on this slide, that's my piece as a part of this financial statement that is the responsibility of management, is the report on compliance and internal control over financial reporting in accordance with Oregon state regulations. So as a governmental entity, the state of Oregon asked us to look at certain items. They're listed in that report within the CAFR. We do look at those items from budgeting and purchasing, some investments and deposits, some different rules that the state has, and we're happy to report no non-compliance noted. So good, kudos to the district, compliments to them, and well done. And I'll forward the slide. Okay, good. So the second piece that we have there is required communications. So we did meet with the audit committee. We met in September and December, just like we normally do. We met September 10th and then again December 1st, so that was last week, to go over the audit results. I'm happy to report that there were no difficulties encountered during the audit, no auditor proposed adjusting journal entries, no uncorrected misstatements, no internal control findings, no disagreements. Not aware of any consultations that management had with other accountants. At that point, there's a letter that we also provide to the audit committee. Kind of goes over additional GASB standards that will be upcoming, some recently issued GASB standards that the district will look at the application for. Two of them are more current, related to fiduciary activities, and the other one to leases. So at that point, just like to point out that this 97-page document of their financial statements, very well put together. I think it's a great document. The district had received 15 GFOA awards already so far related to this CAFR, related to their CAFRs. And I know that they'll submit for their 16th award with this CAFR, and I have no doubt it will be received by the district. And just like to express my appreciation at this point to Lori, Olivia, and Cindy and the entire team for their support during the audit. took quite a bit of effort, but on both sides, but they do a really great job in supporting us and being able to be here tonight to present to you and to have the financial statements issued before the end of the year. So well done. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Julie, so much for your presentation and for putting it in lay terms, and our amazing staff as usual. Makes your work easy, makes our work easy to support them. Does any of my board members have any other questions? Doug? Oh, I heard something. Felicia, maybe?
I'm just going to say thank you to the committee as well.
Yeah, if I could just add quickly here, certainly thank you to Julie and her team at TKW, as well as the audit committee, and really acknowledging Lori Baker and her team, the uniqueness of what the virus has done, particularly to the Park District. In like manner, it's not unlike a day-to-day private business. We've been impacted significantly. And it's obviously a combination of staffing impacts to our work with the public and the challenges within all of those environments at continuing the day-to-day basic operations. And the audit is a perfect example of stuff that it has to be done. And the criticality of staff doing it in a remote environment. And we really, I think, pulled off a great show, Lori and her staff, obviously securing the necessary information so the audit could be done. And as important, a successful audit is always a plus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, unless there's any other questions, I think we'll move to budget.
I think I
Committee?
need to make a motion.
Oh, go for it.
I move that the board of directors accept the audit report on the Park District's comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020.
This is Wendy. I second that.
Wendy Kruger,
Yes.
Felicia de Monteblanco,
Yes.
Tia Ping.
Yes. Okay, now we're going to move on to budget committee interviews. Thanks, Lisa.
Good job, Tia.
Okay, so I think our first will be the board has a couple questions for our wonderful people who want to get interviewed, and so we have 3 great candidates. It looks like we have Ann Albright, Elizabeth Edwards, and Alfredo Marino, which I think we have all 3 here. I see Anne and Alfredo, and is Elizabeth here? Yes. So the first up, Anne, if you want to be our first contestant and unmute yourself in video, and we can go ahead and move forward with our interviews.
Well, hi, thank you. I really appreciate you all being here and taking the time.
Of
I'm
course.
excited to meet you all.
Perfect. Okay, so we will just start off right off the bat, and I have the first question. So why would you like to serve on the district's budget committee?
I would like to serve on the budget committee. I really had a wonderful experience being a volunteer for the Visioning Task Force. It was such a wonderful opportunity, and I was able to really see the breadth of what Parks and Rec does for the community. And this to me is an extension of that, being able to reach people, and especially people who have barriers to being an integral part of what Parks and Rec has to offer. So when I saw the opportunity, I was excited to learn a little bit more about it, and especially with the view that I had just recently seen as a Visioning Task Force member. It just seemed like a perfect blend of the two. I've got a nice base of what I was able to witness out in the community.
Thank you, Anne. This is Felicita. Nice to see you again, and thank you so much for applying. Second question, what do you believe is the role of the budget committee for the district?
So I believe the role of a budget committee is to be fiscally responsible. I think when you're addressing such a wide breadth of people, you need to be very open to different ideas and different values. And I think it's really important to be fiduciary responsibility for when you're handling other people's money and reaching such a diverse population of people. I think those things have to be paramount in every decision that you make.
Hi, Anne. This is Wendy, and thank you for being here this evening. We really appreciate your time. I have question number 3 for you. It is, what professional or volunteer experience do you have that would help you in your role as a budget committee member?
Well, like I mentioned, I was really lucky to have the opportunity to work with the Visioning Task Force. So that is one of the things I really appreciate and value. And it's also what sparked my interest when I heard this was available. The other is I've been 5 years the treasurer for the HOA that I currently live in. And that's kind of helped me deal with a lot of different people have a lot of different ideas about what is the most important thing. And so it's given me some practice of really listening to the differences, having people feel heard, and then making sure that the needs in that community are being met in an equitable way.
Thank you so much. Okay, so your fourth and last question is, what do you believe is the most important financial issue of the district, and why do you believe it is important?
Oh my goodness. There are so many things that could be addressed, but I have to say, Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec does a beautiful job. I was amazed at just how far-reaching the services, the events, facilities reach people. That to me was just so impressive. But I get torn. When I started with the Visioning Task Force, my first thought was acquiring property because we are going to have so many people in our community continuing to grow. Land is finite. But then when I started going out in the community and asking people what they really valued, what they wanted for the visioning for the future, I was surprised at how many people didn't know what Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec offer the community. So I guess for me, I guess it is about the ability to get areas and places where people can recreate, where people can community can get together. So I guess that's where what I would have to say, but I'd also recognize that it depends on the community, and that can shift depending on, even such as COVID happening. Suddenly now other things might weigh more than others. So I guess that's it. Oh, I can't.
Thank you so much for your answers and applying and just lending your time to our district and for being on the task force. It's one of our board's favoriteest things, and you guys did an amazing job. So thank you so much for all you've done, and great answers. Okay, so we will move to our next candidate. It is Elizabeth Edwards. If you want to unmute and go on video.
Hi there.
Hi. Okay, sounds good. So I, again, will ask the first question, which is, why would you like to serve on the district's budget committee?
So when I saw this opportunity come up, I was trying to find ways to get more involved with the community where I live. And about 3 years ago, my wife and I moved to the Garden Home area, and our little community center was the first thing that really centered us in our new neighborhood and in our community. So I've always had an interest in getting more involved with THPRD and learning more about it. And the budget committee felt like a really good a place where I could also lend my skills. I've worked in government almost my entire career. I oversee budget for my own office, but I also work with a lot of different governments and look at a lot of different budgets. And it seemed like a nice marrying of different skills. And there's some really interesting issues that will be coming up over the next at least year and a half with the adaptation to COVID. And I think all that will be reflected in the budget too.
Hi, Elizabeth. Nice to meet you. I'm Felicita. Thanks so much for applying. Second question. What do you believe is the role of the budget committee for the district?
So I think that the budget committee, because it's also involved fairly early in the process, I took a look at the schematic, I think can provide both some civilian oversight to see, okay, is this the right allocation of funds? Are we being prudent with civilians' tax dollars and making sure that we're actually serving our community? The other thing is that budgets are moral documents, and if I've learned anything, it's that where people put their money, that's where we're reflecting our values. And so to make sure that the expenditures also reflect equitable provision of services and making sure that folks actually have access to services and are taking advantage of them, and that the impact is being felt.
Hi, Elizabeth. This is Wendy. Thank you very much for being here this evening, and thank you for applying. I get to ask you question number 3, which is, what professional or volunteer experience do you have that would help you in your role as a budget committee member?
Thanks so much for that question. I referenced a little bit. I've worked for government most of my career at the federal, state, and local levels. For the last 4 years, I've overseen a department within the city of Portland that handles all of the intergovernmental relations. So in addition to running my own budget, we also coordinate with other regional governments, state, federal, tribal governments, and we also have a sister cities and international outreach. And so through all of that work with different organizations, lobbying alongside the Special Districts Association, I feel like I have a really good sense of both government budgeting and a strong familiarity with bonding, property tax, and system development charges. And so I think all of that hopefully lays a good foundation to understand what some of the challenges may be looking ahead with some of the restrictions on certain types of money, but also perhaps areas of opportunity as well.
Thank you for that answer. Okay, the last question for the night is, what do you believe is the most important financial issue of the district, and why do you believe it's important?
So I have to say right now it's COVID, because it's disrupted everything. I saw that THPRD lost about $4.5 million just in fees for provision of services from March until end of the prior fiscal year from COVID. I think looking ahead, how we're going to adapt, we don't know what the vaccine will actually, how things will roll out, because I think we're still learning a lot about the science. And so I think even as we get into the 21-22 budget, there are going to be a lot of considerations there, and how to, bring people back, have folks, fully employed, and people be able to safely enjoy the all of the facilities and services safely.
Perfect.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for taking the time to apply and being here for the interview, and thank you so much for your time. So then our third and final candidate is Alfred Moreno. Are you here, Alfredo?
Here I am.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start off with the first question again,
Okay.
Which is, what do you believe is the role? Oh, sorry, wrong question. Why would you like to serve on the district's budget committee?
Yeah, so as a dad, working dad with 2 young kids, I have never valued THPRD more than I have in the last 9 months or so. We live 2 blocks away from Conestoga Rec Center, and I have felt the impact of the closure throughout this time, but I've also felt I've also explored more parks than I've ever explored in my time living in the service district area. And I really have determined, you know, I've kind of have been excited about the opportunity to give back to the district, to maybe help it regain its footing so that my kids can continue to enjoy it in its most robust full service form, and that other people can enjoy it who might not have had a chance to. So I'm excited about the opportunity to serve on a committee, to work with this board, to keep this service district thriving. So this has been it's just been an amazing resource for self-care for our entire family. And I didn't even fully realize it until the last, 9 months or so. So anything I can do to help the overall health of the district is a big motivator for me.
Thanks, Alfredo. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
What do you believe is the role of the budget committee for the district?
Well, I think obviously it's to help be a good steward of funds. But I also think there's a sizable portion, especially I guess how I might see my role. There's a sizable portion of this committee that would need to just be a voice of community, try to be empathetic to people who are not represented in the committee. Try to ask appropriate questions to ensure that the budget is actually setting a foundation for the district to achieve its goals, especially those of an equity nature, to make sure the right people, or I'm sorry, not the right people, to make sure all people who the district serves are benefiting equitably from the resources. So I think there is some room for the committee to provide some valuable insight and to help form a more robust panel of perspective. So I think that's how I kind of see the budget committee playing a key role.
Good evening, Alfred. This is Wendy.
Hello, Wendy.
Welcome, and thank you for sharing your time with us this evening. I have question number 3 for you, which is, what professional or volunteer experience do you have that would help you in your role as a budget committee member? Sure.
So I guess I'm a self-described community enthusiast. I work, my regular job is the community relations manager for Portland Community College's Rock Creek campus and essentially everything on the west side that the college is involved in. I am the incoming co-chair of the Five Oaks Museum, which is on the Rock Creek campus, and serve as a ex officio board member for the Beaverton Chamber, and also work with Beaverton School District on their long range facility planning committee. So I am involved in, I am a well-rounded community enthusiast. So I really enjoy being active in the community. I have my professional background is 2 decades in communications and public relations. So I consider myself a skilled listener and hopefully on my better days, a skilled communicator. I enjoy kind of building a consensus and helping kind of bring a wide range of thoughts together. What I would hope to bring to this group would be an eye for detail and someone who's not afraid to kind of ask critical questions, but in a way that's going to ultimately lead to a more productive group that we think about all things before we put our stamp to it. So that's how I'd respond to that one.
Thank you. Okay, and your fourth and final question is, what do you believe is the most important financial issue of the district, and why do you believe it's the most important?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for me, it's obviously it's finding a way through these, these kind of dangerous waters that we are still going to be in with the pandemic, and I'm thinking ahead to the revenue potentially lost with summer activities and camps, things of that nature. So I know the previous summer was a hard one. I know there was large numbers of staff that had to be laid off. I think it's it's no doubt a serious time for THPRD. So, but what I want to make sure is that as the district sets its course for the future, that it's considering who's benefiting the most and who's not involved and whose voices need to be heard more. Those conversations still have to happen even when you're making really serious decisions about trying to do more with less, which is the unfortunate circumstance that we find ourselves in. So yeah, hopefully I answered your question well there.
That's perfect. Thank you. And thank you again to all three candidates. You guys are amazing. We actually had a lot of applicants, and so I wish we could take all three of you. But this interview process was very helpful. And again, just thank you so much for taking an interest in serving your community and in specifically THPRD. We as board members know how special it is, and we're so glad our community can see that and is willing to step up and volunteer. And we've had so many interests. So thank you three again for taking the time. And I believe we will be discussing more at the January meeting and potentially making a decision then. Thank you. Is that right, Doug? Anything else?
You got it, correct.
Okay, perfect. So next on the agenda is audience time, and I don't believe we have anything written. Do we have anybody waiting?
We do not.
Okay, perfect. And then we'll just cruise on over to board time for committee liaison updates. Felicia, do you want to start? Not to put you on the spot.
Challenge accepted. I have a list. It's short, I promise. Thank you, Tia. One, I think all of us were there, but just give kudos. I know Ashley's not here, but the SEPA grand opening was wonderful and highlighted our involvement in that project. And I will continue to shout it from the rooftops. Love that project. And kudos to Jean and all her work making that possible. I've been trying to attend more City of Beaverton meetings. I wanted to highlight that at the one last week, they talked about their climate action plan. I, for the life of me, don't remember how we engaged when they wrote this in 1819. But I couldn't help but notice that we are only attached to one action item. And so I did follow up with Mayor-elect Beatty and Councilor-elect Tivnon to share, there's a couple things here I feel like THPRD is actually already doing and you should be aware of. As an example, they talked about preparing for wildfire smoke and making sure there were shelters for that. And I was like, you guys know we're doing shelters, right? We have experience in this. So I know Mayor-elect Beatty really wants to do a committee that is primarily young people to kind of hold this act to prioritize these action items and make them happen. So I think there's more conversation there between our district and the city, which is exciting. And I know my peers are very passionate about climate justice. So I think there's lots of ways for THPRD to engage in this work. I wanted to share that Doug and I met with Metro Councilor-elect Rosenthal just to tell him a little bit about the district. He is in Craig Dirkson's seat, which represents a portion of Beaverton. He does not live in the district. He lives in Sherwood. That's okay. So it was fun to get to tell him a little bit more about the district. I would encourage all my peers to get to know him. As we know, that's a big part of our roles is interacting with other electeds. And then finally, I just wanted to give major kudos to really the entire team, because I had this wonderful conversation with Councilor-elect Nadia Hassan about her involvement with the advisory committee. And maybe a lot of staff know the story, but I'm going to tell it anyways. In short version, that when she started on the community visioning committee, she had just had her third baby a few weeks prior. And she shared with me just how welcoming everyone was, and how it was just like truly transformational, because she had just had a baby. She wasn't sure if this was something she could engage in, and she was feeling, so vulnerable in that space. And everyone was welcoming and thoughtful. And I just think there's amazing ripple effects, right? Because now we have a city councilor who knows us so well and is going to be an ally to us, which is super exciting. And she's smart and thoughtful. And when we're super inclusive and we make efforts with moms, like it moves the needle. And so I'm really thankful for all the staff and all the fellow community visioning committee members who made that a possibility. And I know like the fact that we have 3 moms on our board, like that's huge, and as it should be. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicita. Wendy?
Trying to get my buttons going here. Thank you. First of all, I wanted to echo what Felicita said about the SEPA grand opening. I also wanted to comment that I was really impressed with their kind of opening statement about being on the land of Indigenous peoples. And they did such a lovely job recognizing that. So I just wanted to shout that out. And for those of you who didn't maybe get a chance to see the video, I think it should still be on there. And it was really, really well done, I think. Secondly, I am so happy that you are, Felicita, talking with the city on the climate plan. I asked earlier about our involvement and was told that we were going to wait to see what the city of Beaverton did because it was their plan. Well, now we see what they're doing, so they need a lot of our help. So I'm glad you're there. And
let's keep pushing, Wendy.
I know, and so thank you very much for doing that. And anything I can help you do to push, please let me know. As to committee liaisons, a couple of things. One is on November 18th, we had a Parks and Facilities Advisory Committee meeting, and we heard from Tim Bonham, park planner, on the Wishcamper Park Development site at South Cooper Mountain. And we received staff updates on Ridgewood Park Dog Run and also the Jackie Hewson Dog Run. And we joined the Nature and Trails Advisory Committee to hear staff, Liana Harden, who's engagement and partnership specialist, present the new Parks and Trails naming proposal, and also the revisions of the Nature Play guidelines from Matt Kilmartin, who's a park planner. So those were both really interesting. On the 19th, there was a pension committee meeting, and I want to take this moment for saying that Lori Baker is the staff liaison for that committee. And when she's there at that meeting, you just think that must be her full-time job because she's just totally engaged. She totally knows what she's doing. And then you also hear about the audit report. And then you also hear about all these other things that Lori does. So I just wanted to say thank you because we are so lucky to have Lori Baker on our staff. So thank you for that, Lori. At that meeting, we discussed the status of the U.S. bank conversion, potential funding policy for the pension trust, and reviewed and approved actuarial assumptions for pension evaluation. In addition to those meetings, I also attended online the HBA, the Housing, I always get their name wrong, Home Builders Association Housing Forecast, which was really interesting. And I sent the link to Ashley, but if any of the rest of you would like to get any more information, I'll certainly pass it along. I also, on the 16th, was the speaker at the Washington County Speakers Forum, And they treated me very nicely. They wanted to know how we were doing with our trails and parks and natural areas, especially in these times. So with the help of a wonderful PowerPoint presentation from Holly's group, I was able to wow them, and it was mostly because of that, not because of what I did. But I think they were interested, and they were. I think they learned a lot because they weren't aware of how much this has taken out of us and how much we've had to fight. Finally, I went to the Greenway NAC meeting, and Kathy Ellis is now the THPRD staff liaison. She's doing a great job. She had big shoes to fill because Keith Watson always was very good at that, but she's doing very well. And so I was there for that meeting. And I think that was all I was doing in terms of board activities. So thank you.
That's it. That is a lot, Wendy. Thank you so much, you guys, for your wonderful updates. I will round out my committee liaison. It's short and sweet. We programs and events met, and they just confirmed our welcoming packet drafts that Holly and her team made beautifully. So hopefully we'll be able to present that soon. And otherwise, we had an update of the unfortunate continued closures of our facilities due to COVID and at the governor's directives. So we actually won't be meeting in December, but that's just a quick and short of it. Hopefully we will come back in January and have lots of things to discuss if we can get all of this viral stuff under control. I do want to take the time during this time just to really recognize our staff as it is coming towards the end of the year to really, I know we try to say thank you as much as we can, but I really want to stress just the superstars that you guys are, how appreciative of what we've, with all the work that you do with winter and things like UV depression and just being stuck indoors and creating space for the public to be able to get out and things for to engage our community is just a wonderful thing that you guys are providing. But I also hope that you guys all take time to make sure to take care of yourself, especially through the end of the year and through the holidays. Take the time to really enjoy your families, your friends, your support group, and each other, and just really you are always pushing for the greater good of our community. So I want to just make sure to say thank you. We see you, we appreciate you, and just please make sure to take care of yourself through the rest of the year so that we can come back refreshed and just really keep the district moving forward. So thank you. With that, yes.
I forgot something that I wanted to give kudos to. Is that okay?
No, it's not.
No.
Go for it.
I feel bad following your lovely, thoughtful comments. I don't know which staffer came up with this or if it was a team, but there's been some really cool work around park naming. And as someone on the board who identifies as Latina, there's a park name idea called Pio Pio, which is Latino people everywhere understand that sound, that word, as the sound a chicken makes, and there's literally a song that we all grew up hearing from our tias and our abuelas, and so I hope whoever came up with that idea, it almost made me cry. Like, it just was so beautiful, and it's so intentional and so inclusive, and I'm so proud of everything that we do. It's a little thing, but it matters so much. So thank you.
I think that's Liana's team, right?
I think it's Liana, but Ashley or Aisha may be able to help with which staff member.
Yep, that's right. That's a project that Liana has been working on. And I think, if I'm correct, we are bringing that back in January. So you will get an update on all of the outreach that's been done. If you've been on social media at all, you've seen the posts about our interest in soliciting feedback on the entire naming process. But it has been great when she's come with Gary to present to us at management team. We all leave the meeting with great big smiles on our face. We're all very excited about the project as well.
Great, thank you. Anything else, Felicita? Okay, so I think next we have consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
This is Felicita. I move that the board approve the consent agenda as submitted.
This is Wendy. I second it.
Felicita Monteblanco,
Yes.
Wendy Kroger,
Yes.
Tia Ping.
Yes. Okay, and then we will move on to unfinished business.
You bet. We have Lori is going to update the board on our latest work, which has some of the actuals from the first quarter, of course, revised operating plan. Lori?
Thank you. Can you forward this slide, please? So our budget for the fiscal year that began on July 1 was adopted by the board on June 16th. We knew when the budget was adopted that we would need to monitor our operations differently this year, but move forward with the budget adoption to allow us the ability to continue to address circumstances as they occurred. In August, we presented the first version of the district's revised operating plan to the board. As we move forward with operations this year, we'll be utilizing revised operating plans and quarterly forecasts. Our next forecast will be our mid-year forecast, which will be presented at our first budget committee meeting on February 24th, 2021. Our management team will continue to work closely together as we evaluate different program and operating scenarios. This will allow us to continue to be financially strong while having the flexibility to respond to current conditions. This is a summary of our revised operating plan completed with recent projections on facility timelines and estimates on programming, maintenance services, and other operational activities that are planned for the year, given our current, well, sort of current status with COVID-19. So these numbers were completed before our most recent closures. It's an interesting task to do these estimates because as soon as the report is issued, it's kind of outdated. So bear with me. You also have in your packet a more detailed version of the operating plan, which gives revised projections for each division, department, and center in the district. Next slide, please. This is a summary of our revenue projections for the current fiscal year as compared to the adopted budget, the first version of the revised operating plan, actual results for the prior year, and the adjusted budget for the prior year. As you can see, revenues are projected at a reduced level when compared to the adopted budget, the prior year, and the first version of the revised operating plan. What I would note here is that given recent closures, we do anticipate that program revenues will be lower than the projected amounts that we just released. But on the positive side, this projection does not include the most recent grant award from Washington County, the $3.1 million that you approved the IGA just a few minutes ago. Next slide, please. We're now projecting that revenue will be $11.2 million lower than budget for the 2021 fiscal year. We started the year with $868,000 more cash than anticipated, which was good news, as a result of expenditure reductions that we implemented during the COVID shutdown from March to June, and some slight increases in property tax collections that we didn't anticipate. We're estimating an $11.6 million decline in program revenues due to the impact of facility closures, the changes that we're making to programs as a result of the pandemic, and the activity experienced during our summer camps and our initial facility openings in September and October. These were our best estimates of revenue for the year, but we'll be updating those again. But we are impacted by state closure orders as we're experiencing now, as well as attendance levels once we're able to offer those programs again. We've added almost $1 million in federal grant funding received from Washington County, but now we need to add that other $3 million that was approved this evening. We also have estimated reductions in other revenues, such as interest earnings and rental income for the year. Next slide, please. This slide shows the costs of running the district, with park and recreation services and business and facilities, which includes maintenance, being the largest part of our spending. Our revised operating plan includes reductions to spending in response to the projected declines in revenue noted on the previous slides. Next slide, please. In order to balance our revised operating plan, we made a series of changes, including reduction of a large portion of the general fund capital projects for the year. Some of these projects were eliminated or they'll be deferred to future years. Part-time staffing reductions, reductions in seasonal staff allow for spending reductions of about 6.5 million. Layoffs and furloughs of our full-time and regular part-time staff provided an additional 4 million in reductions, and materials and services, including reductions in supplies and training, are providing a projected reduction of 2 million. We've increased our contingency in our revised plan by $2.7 million. This will allow us to fund carry forward cash into the upcoming budget at normal levels. Next slide, please. As we continue in the year, we'll continue to manage the finances for the district to ensure that at the end of the COVID closures, which we are really looking forward to, we will continue to be strong financially and able to move forward and provide the services we love to provide for our community. Our next forecast, as I said, will be our mid-year forecast, which will be presented at our first budget committee meeting on February 24th. And we'll also continue to perform review and analysis of our program offerings. So particularly in the management team, we're monitoring the closures currently and discussing next steps. Are there any questions? Wendy?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the report. And again, it's well done. It helps us understand where we are and where we could have been. So we're much better off than we could be. So I really appreciate that. I wanted to ask if a report similar to this might be made to our advisory committees, maybe at the next joint advisory committee meeting in January. I've asked that they be informed. They are part of our great volunteer group. They care enough to come to meetings. And I think that it's very appropriate to let them know what we're facing and how they can help us. So I've talked with staff, Keith specifically, because he's the staff liaison for Parks and Facilities Advisory Committee. And my hope is that we can maybe do that in January, and something like you've just presented here would be perfect. So okay. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
No questions, just thank you, Lori, and everyone's just had to pivot so much and do more with less, and it's appreciated, and it's a tough year, but I appreciate all the work everyone's done.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the pivoting and all the flexibility and stuff, and still being able to manage and keep us afloat. It's just an amazing work. So thank you. Doug,
Tia,
General
if
Manager,
I could
yes,
add as
go
well,
for it.
Tia,
Yes.
please. Although I think I had a comment, we've had a lot of very nice comments with regard to staff, and we all do really appreciate it. I know, this work here that Lori works on. I've tried to remind Lori, because she's a very avid worker. I think that's a fair way of putting it. That in the end, she does the best she can in putting the package together. That creates the pathway, and the fresh reminder for all of us is we're all responsible to ensure that we get through this period of time. It takes it's not enough just to have the plan, but without the plan we'd have some much more larger serious problems. But with the plan, we have a tool by which to move forward, and I think all areas of our staff are really working hard on this. And of course, the criticality of Lori and her team being able to put together the package, it kind of is a lift for all of us to see a pathway forward, and knowing that we all have a role to play to ensure that we get there.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, so next up, unless there's anything else, I think we have the General Manager's report.
Yes, we have an update from Keith Watson and some of his staff.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I am actually just here to give a quick introduction to Melissa Markham, our volunteer services specialist, and Miriam Van Orman, who is going to give us a quick presentation tonight on a project she did as her Gold Award project for the Girl Scouts. So Melissa, if you want to take it away.
Thanks, Keith. Hello, members of the board. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm here with one of our volunteers who's a Gold Award candidate with the Girl Scouts of America, Miriam. She recently built and installed a little free library nook at Shotman Creek Greenway, which is in the Waterhouse neighborhood. This project was initiated by a neighbor who was interested in installing a library structure in her neighborhood. And so the neighbor worked with the HOA to get their buy-in, and then partnered with the Park District to identify an accessible location and formalize the details in an MOU. Keith Watson was the initial liaison throughout the process and identified the construction and installation of the nook as a suitable Scout leadership project. So we posted the project on our website and waited for a Scout with the interest and the motivation to successfully complete the project, and Miriam stepped up to that challenge. Throughout the project, she's shown her dedication, her resourcefulness, and passion for the project and the bigger picture that it ties into. So at this time, we'll go to the next slide, and I'll turn the mic over to Miriam, and she'll explain what she's done for THPRD, why it's so important, and what's still to come.
All right. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Melissa, and hello to the members of the board. My name is Miriam Van Orman, and as said, I was the I was the Girl Scout who worked on this project. And prior to actually doing the project, I had been looking for a Gold Award for a long time, and because I knew that I wanted to do something with education, and I knew I wanted to do something involved with the community, and once I found the request on the THPRD website, it fits so perfectly, especially since it fit in with education and it fit in with my one of my own personal interests of carpentry, and it fit perfectly into the things that I was planning to accomplish. And so I jumped in on that, and especially since one of the things that from the very beginning to even now during this project, everything has been during COVID. Everything has been during lockdown. And just a personal anecdote, my family really felt the closing of the libraries, since it was something that a tradition that we would go to the library every week. And so I was really excited to do something involved with little libraries and be able to put something that other people could enjoy. And so once I started the project and once I was doing research, I found some little libraries in the surrounding neighborhoods, and there was one specifically near the local elementary school where I saw a little free library box that the smallest like elementary schoolers simply couldn't reach, and that made me really sad, because the whole point was to have the little free library be accessible to the people who want to use it. And so I decided to run with that, and I took it a step forward. I took it a few steps further, and I made sure that when I was constructing the box, some of the pictures you can see on the next slide, I tried to make sure that it was up to ADA standards. I'm getting all the right distances and all of the right specifications. And there's me working on it. And another part of the accessibility is I wanted to make sure that this project could be done with a fairly low budget. So the majority of the materials I used for this little free library were from reclaiming and donations, and just to make sure that not only was it accessible, but it was sustainable. And overall, this project, again, during COVID, I did most of the construction at home by myself and using the materials and Melissa's guidance. And then it came to the actual volunteer events. Some of the pictures, again, are on the next slide, where we had to make sure that there was all of the safety precautions put in place, and all of the construction was done and installation was done safely. And it was really powerful, especially not just because I got to build a box that I knew that everybody could access, that everybody could could take books from, little kids and everybody who falls into where the ADA specifications help with, and adults too. And so once the project was finished, once the project was finished, I was ecstatic. It was installed and it was filled with books, as shown on the next slide. And some of my further plans, the ones that I'm actually working on right now, are I have planned to release the blueprints and create a website with all of those resources, so other people can do the same and make sure there are no more little boxes that the little elementary schoolers can't get to anymore. And I just hope that other people will be able to do the same. And I wanted to thank Melissa for helping me along the way, and Scott Bernards for helping with installation and other construction specifications. And overall, I wanted to thank THPRD for providing me an opportunity to take a project and run with it and make it my own and make it better for everybody in the community. And thank you very much.
And so just to wrap up, the Nook that is at Schlattman Greenway, obviously you can see from the pictures that it's stocked and ready to go. We also are working with the neighbor to get it registered through the Little Free Library program. So that is coming soon as well. Are there any questions that we can answer?
I'm sure we all have something to say that is wonderful and great. So we'll start off with Felicita, who had her hand up first.
Thank you so much, Miriam. My goodness, this is wonderful. And I love how you centered younger people, but how it is accessible to so many people because of that. And and thank you to Melissa for other duties as assigned. This is great. And Miriam, I want you to know that 51% of the women in the House of Representatives are former Girl Scouts. So I just want to plant that. And I appreciate your work very much and the ripple effects of your work.
Thank you.
Wendy? Wendy, did you want to say something?
I did. Thank you. Thank you, Miriam, very much. And thank you, Melissa, for bringing Miriam to us. Miriam, I wanted to comment on the fact that you apparently live in Oregon because you've created a very nice overhang for.
Oh, yes.
And so I wanted to thank you for that because it's very practical. I had another question, however, and I was wondering if there was any plans for signage, because it would be really nice perhaps to use either the sides of the box or perhaps across the top of the front to identify what this is more specifically. And I didn't see from the pictures that there was any signage. And that might be something that would be really helpful. But I'm so glad the books are out there. And I was wondering if you could tell me, how is it being received at this point? Is it being used?
Well, I think I can answer the first part of your question really well. As Melissa mentioned, this Little Free Library and the Little Free Library organization are separate things. But what you can do is register boxes to the Little Free Library organization, and they will send a plaque, and they will register it on a map of Little Free Libraries that can be looked up on the Google. But as far as signage goes, that's one part that I was concerned about, but thankfully has been passed on and is getting worked on. As I think the second part of your question would be better directed for Melissa, but yeah.
And you know, I probably don't have the best answer because I've been doing a lot of work from home, so I haven't been past the site to check on it and see. I have talked to the neighbor who instigated the project, and she's very excited about it and has noted that it's gotten some use, but I'm not sure what kind of traffic it's getting. And she is also working on getting that sign so that we can post it on the structure for the Little Free Library system. So. Keith, is there anything else you wanted to add to that too, or Keith has a lot more information about the Little Free Library and.
You know, I too have been working from home and I have not been past the Little Free Library, but yeah, I think the fact that it was requested in that particular neighborhood, I think there's definitely interest there, and we've put it in a place that's you know, accessible both by walking and by driving. You can't really see the street here, but it's pretty close to the street as well and faces out towards the street. So I think once folks start to recognize that it's there, and if we get the plaque here on it soon, my sense is that it's going to get quite a bit of traffic and get a lot of use. So it's in a great spot.
Yeah. What I just wanted to add one last thing is that just for an estimate of like how much quote unquote traffic that it would be getting, I don't know about how many people would be using it, but I do know that especially when we were there for relatively longer periods of time during like the installation project and even just going there initially and scoping out the site, there was usually at least like 3 to 4 families or individuals that would walk by there in like an hour. And it was kind of fun seeing people give the small child funny looks doing construction, but it was but I can vouch for the fact that people do walk by there.
Thank you very much, Miriam. It's a beautiful project.
Yes, thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Keith and Melissa, for bringing this project to us. And Miriam, to throw more praise at you, it's just so amazing that you can have the foresight to really see and go walk around and find other little libraries and find what's wrong with them and just elevate it to another level. And to be able to use sustainable products and reuse things, reclaimed wood and all that kind of stuff is just, it embodies in itself THPRD. It embodies like the community of where we should be moving towards, and to create just a little bit of joy within COVID times and to bring communities together. It's just a wonderful thing you've done, and I'm sure we have many more things coming to come from you. And just thank you again for, if you just would have built a box on wood and just stuck it out there, I would have been amazed. But to really go and look at all the details and create something beautiful and accessible to everybody is just an amazing accomplishment for you. So thank you for everything you've done. You're welcome. Okay, so we'll move on to the next new business from Janine, unless Doug had something else to say at all.
Nope, it's Janine's show.
Okay.
So good evening, Janine Russad, the planning manager. Again, so hard to follow something as fun as that, but I'm here with another system development charge related topic. This is our intergovernmental agreements with the city of Beaverton and Washington County for collection of our SDCs. If you want to, next slide, please, Jessica. So as you can see here, our SDC, the first methodology was adopted in 1998, and we have updated that methodology 5 times since the initial. On the other hand, our IGAs with the city and the county have only been updated once in that time. So next slide, please. The changes, they're a bit technical, but the overarching point of this is we needed to make changes to be consistent with the methodology that you just adopted in November. The first change is an increase in the collection fee that the city and the county charge us. This was built into the methodology, so it's really just a pass through. It's not costing us anymore. And one thing to note, as I was looking through the old agreements, we initially started with the first IGA at 3.6%. We went down to 1.6%. And when we updated the methodology in 2016, the county said, hey, it's costing us more than we're charging you. But they asked us too late in the game. So we made sure that at the outset of updating our methodology, we started the discussions and we made sure that they provided documentation on the increased fees. Also with the county, it came up that when we give credits for projects that amenities that developers are building, it still takes the county time to enter in the credits. It is definitely not 2.6% of the cost of those SDCs. So we have agreed on a flat fee of $50. And then most importantly was for affordable housing waivers. Since the region thinks that affordable housing is important, we have an affordable housing crisis. We've asked, and both the city and the county have not agreed to charge us for those affordable housing waivers that the board approved in October. We have also agreed to allow an annual adjustment of this fee. Again, the city and the county, if they want to adjust the fee, will have to provide documentation, and we'll have it coincide with our annual adjustment that we're going to move to be adopted with the budget. As you may recall, one of the innovative things that you adopted with the new methodology is tiering the single family SDCs. This is going to take both consultants and staff time for at least the county. The city is still evaluating what it'll take them to implement that tiering system. But to compensate at least the county, we're agreeing to a one-time fee of no more than $10,000. This was again provided for in the methodology as part of the administrative costs. One thing that struck me on number 3 when I read the IGAs was if someone overpays an SDC, we have to pay that back. That makes sense. If it's not money we're entitled to, we should have to pay it back. But if for some reason the city or the county misses a fee, they were totally off the hook. Now, in talking with legal counsel, there's probably not a lot that can be done, but there was one case where they just went to the developer and said, hey, we missed this, and just asking got the SDC paid. So they need to do something. And then again, for consistency with the methodology, we've developed a system of how we will notify the city or county about waivers or credits. And then the IGA that's in place right now refers to an implementing ordinance or resolution, but what we use is administrative procedures guide. So those are the areas that we are looking to amend. Next slide, please. Our next steps is those, the draft amendments have been forwarded to the city and the county for their review and for us to negotiate any language on those. After we get agreement on language, of course, we'll get legal review and sign off, and then we will bring that back for your approval. Next slide. I'm happy to take any questions. Silence.
It just means you did a great presentation. I have no questions.
No
Thank
questions.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we are moving on to South Cooper Mountain Main Street Master Plan.
You bet. Gary Keck is with us and he'll kick that off.
Good evening, and thank you for having us tonight. My name is Gary Keck, and I'm the Design and Development Manager for the Park District. And with me is Tim Bonin. Tim's our Senior Park Planner, and he's actually the project manager of this project. He's done a great job leading us through the design process. So Tonight, we are here seeking board approval of the preferred master plan for the Main Street Park project. This project is it's an exciting new partnership with another affordable housing developer, Wishcamper Development Partners. And on the next slide, I will briefly orient you with the park's location before I hand it over to Tim so we can finish the presentation. But you can see this is in the South Cooper Mountain area. The site there in the red is the site. It's right next to the new Mountainside High School. Mountainside High School is just to the east of the site. On the next slide, we'll zoom in just a little further to get you a little more oriented. So here you can see the road on the bottom there that runs left to right. That's Shoals Ferry Road. And you can see the large high school there next to us as well. What you can see there, the red outline is the park area that Tim will be going over. So what I'll do is we'll go to the next slide and I'm going to hand it over to Tim and he's going to run us through the design.
Thank you, Gary. Good evening, everybody. This park would be designed and constructed by Wishcamper Development Partners for system development charges credits. The Wishcamper project consists of two subdevelopments, Main Street, which is a 9.8 commercial site, and Blackbird Farms, a 32-acre urban neighborhood site. The park is located within Main Street, within the Main Street project shown in the yellow arrow. Next slide, please. The park is 0.26 acres in size and fits the criteria of our park's functional plan for an urban plaza. There's proposed urban housing to the west, senior living to the north, and commercial use to the south. As shown with the blue arrows, on the upper left, the arrow going up and down, that's north and south. So as the senior living to the north, there's a pedestrian crossing there on the road. And then just to the left is another pedestrian crossing going east-west that will connect folks from the affordable housing units. On the upper right, that blue arrow indicates a rapid flashing beacon crossing that will get students from the high school to the site, to the commercial site. And then the arrow in the middle, in between the tan buildings, that's the connection between the Main Street Park and the commercial plaza itself. The commercial plaza has the potential to host food carts, festivals, a farmer's market, and other activities. Next slide, please. The park is delineated by retaining walls and a descending stairway and ramp to preserve significant trees. The proposed park acts as an extension of the surrounding architecture and is connected to the commercial plaza. In the upper right, in the plan view, the area in gray is the sidewalks and seat walls of the site, and the green is the grass and landscape areas. Shown also in the plan view, those 4 green dots, those are existing trees that are on site that the developer wants to preserve. And so when looking at the different views, you can see view A with the gold arrow in the lower left-hand corner. In view A, you're looking into the site from the street. You can see the walkway that carries you into the little plaza area. There's the architecture just to the south of the site. And you can see those 2 large trees in the foreground. Those are 2 sweet gums that are to be preserved with the during the construction of the site. View B, just to the right, is a closer look of the gathering space. So you can see there's some walkways connecting that connect various points through the plaza area, as well as some seat walls for gathering and conversation. And then in the upper left, in view C, this view is actually a little bit below grade. So again, to preserve the trees, this area is about 4 feet below grade, and it creates a nice little nook area here where, as you can see, you have little kids can kind of hang out and run around in, and parents can sit up along the steps. So a nice little secured, quiet space within the park. Next slide, please. The park was presented to the public by Wishcamper on April 29th, 2020, and we shared the master plan with the Park Facilities Advisory Committee this past November, as well as our own internal design team members. Comments we heard from the AC and our internal design team that will be incorporated into the park's final design will be safe access for seniors, lighting, benches with armrests, so incorporating a few of those, which makes it easier for seniors to sit down and stand back up. As well as we'll look a little bit closer on that small plaza area in the middle. The developer originally was proposing grass in between the seat walls. Now they're thinking of synthetic turf. And in talking with our internal design team, we might just look at making that some sort of decorative concrete, just so we can have more function and more use with it. And we're working with our programming staff on that as well, and figure out what we can do to activate this space. And we also will continue to incorporate our visioning goals into the final design. For instance, welcoming and inclusive, we'll look at hosting events and other activities, especially those that surround food. Play for everyone, classes and activities for all ages. Accessible and safety, as I mentioned, there's street crossings, pedestrian crossings, and the rapid flashing beacons to get people into the space, as well as making sure the walkways are wide enough, there's handrails, and that it's well lit. And lastly, of our visioning goals is preserving natural space. And in this case, we'll be preserving those 4 large significant trees, which will give a nice instant impact to the park as well. Next slide, please. And so lastly, are there any questions we can answer for the group?
Wendy?
Yes, Wendy.
You might be on mute, Wendy.
Right, I think, have we got it now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tim, very much. And it's nice to see you again after the Parks and Facilities Advisory Committee meeting. I think you hit most of the points they asked, but I was wondering if you'd had a chance, because you were going to go back and talk to the internal design folks about one of the suggestions one of the members made was built-in games. And I don't know whether she followed up with giving you some ideas or not, but if not, I can ask her to do that.
We have not heard from her yet, and actually Keith and I just spoke yesterday, and Keith sent her another email, I believe, and that's something we could like to incorporate. One of the advisory committee members mentioned games, some types of games we could have in this space as well, so we can work with that. And again, we have our programming member, Emily Kent, working with us, so she can help figure out what kind of uses we could have in this space.
And thank you for that. Another question was lighting, because it is more of an open space. So I know that we are backing into how to deal with lighting in parks and along trails. And this is probably just another opportunity to take a look at how we can do that.
It's certainly in our parks functional plan, our urban plazas, we know that they can be lit. And we've also spoke with the OTEC as the designer for the developer. And yes, they've already incorporated some lighting into this. So we're thinking that, we could complement the lighting that happens with the commercial space. So if the commercial space is open till 10 o'clock at night, that we have adequate lighting in the plaza area as well, so people can safely move to and from that commercial space back to their homes, as well as maybe hang out there for a little bit in the evening if they're getting something to eat or going to some sort of event. So yes, we'll be incorporating that into this as well.
That's perfect. And then my last question, and I don't know that it's a simple answer, but for anybody who has sat outside our regular meeting place when we get to meet together, if you sit out there, it's quite a wind tunnel. And if it's in the winter, it's a pretty cold wind tunnel. So one of the questions that I'd been asked, and then I think I asked you at the meeting, was, is there any possibility of checking to make sure that that breezeway is not in fact a wind tunnel? And I know that's a design issue, and I know that it's going to impact other buildings. So I don't know that it's possible, but if it is possible, it would be nice not to have just a big wind tunnel through there.
We shared your comment with the architect, Ben, and he says once the buildings get the final design. They go through, they have to look at different tenants and see what their uses are, but they will look at that and study that in that sort of microclimate level and make sure we don't create the THPRD window I think you're referring to, because yes, it is cold out there.
It does. Well, thank you very much, Tim.
Certainly.
Felicita, did you have any questions?
No questions. It's great. I think we're going to be experts in urban plazas real soon.
Perfect. Tim, this is Tia. I did have a question. You mentioned we're saving 4 trees. Do you know, are we cutting down a lot of other trees?
There's an existing home on this site.
Okay.
If you look back at the plan view, there's one sort of branch that was left, and these are 4 significant trees. So there's 2 sweet gums that are shown in this photo here. The ones in this illustration, the ones toward the back are giant sequoias.
Perfect.
And I believe there's also a smaller oak that will be saved. So they were probably planted by the resident.
Gotcha. And then, so you mentioned like kids playing in the shade, and Wendy's mentioning games. Were there certain activities or little play structures or anything that was going into this plaza at all, or?
No, so this as an urban space, we're
Yeah.
thinking of it just having the built-in seats and maybe some additional benches there as well. The stairs themselves that go down to the lower level, which also has ADA access, they're sort of the long seating steps. So it's more of that informal space for people to gather and hang out in. North of this, so in the same development, in the Blackbird Farms, a little further north, there's 1 or 2 parks proposed there, and those will be more traditional with play equipment.
Okay, perfect. I can't quite remember what the picture was of the prior, but if there are other trees down, and if this is a welcomed suggestion, if you create like log kind of stump benches, like of varying degrees, kids love to like jump up and down on those, and they could also be useful for as sustainable seating. So just thought that just kind of popped into my head.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions from anybody else, or anything else we need to talk about before we close out? Doug, any last comments?
Gary and Tim helped me out here, but I think you were seeking approval.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
we're looking for a motion to approve the preferred master plan.
Yes, thank you. Do I have a motion from one of my board members?
Yes, Tia, you do. This is Wendy. But I wanted to ask right after we do this, I had one other quick question before we adjourn, if that's all right.
Of course.
Okay. So with regard to the South Cooper Mountain Main Street Plaza Master Plan, I move that the Board of Directors approve the preferred master plan for the Main Street Park.
This is Felicita. I second.
Wendy Kroger,
Yes.
Felicita Monteblanco,
Yes.
Tia Ping.
Yes. And Wendy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I was noticing when I was reading my packet that in the last month's minutes, there was just a note about the Tualatin Valley Trail community involvement process. And I wondered if at our next meeting, we might just have an update on that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Now, does anybody have any other last minute things before we close out? Okay, then I will adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the holidays that are coming up.
You bet. Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Good
Yes,
night.
happy holidays.
Thank you.